Hi, this is Anita from Endoro, and this is another one of our series on Procreate Made Easy. Today we're going to teach you a bit about how to design a lamp. And if you haven't used Procreate, it's really a great program to be able to do some product design and to get out and to see how your product ideas will look on paper. First you go to Procreate, you insert a new canvas, and then we're going to insert a photo. Now this is a lamp that we already have in our showroom, and we're going to use that lamp as a base for us to design our lamp. You notice that lamp is on the first layer. Now we're going to add a layer. Because in Procreate, and when you're doing this type of technique, one of the most important things that you can do, and one of the important things you can remember to do, is to be able to add layers. So don't forget to add your layer. And then we also like to try to use a color that's sort of a bright color because it's not going to show up at the end. So here we are tracing it. The reason why we like to use bright colors is because then we can kind of see the colors, we can kind of see where we're tracing things, and sometimes I like to use a bit of a thicker line or a thicker pen because we're going to use clipping mask and it won't show. Again, what's very important is once you do a layer, you need to be able to fill the layer in. And if for some reason the layer doesn't fill in, then clipping mask will not work. So now I've erased that layer that I've done, and now I'm going to do another layer so I can kind of see the layers that I'm working on. So this one isn't quite straight, so we have to be able to look to sort of straighten it out, move it to where it needs to go, get it to where we think that it fits. So, you can just kind of be a bit of a judge on that. Since on a layer, you can always go back in and erase the layer and do a new layer. And then we'll have to do the same thing again, where we're going to have to make sure that we can fill this in with a color. So I will choose another color. If I need to adjust that a bit in the corner there, I see down there, I might need to adjust that, I will do that. So you can see now here I have a couple layers. So you can always, go in, you can always adjust and move. So here it's right there. You see we need to maybe adjust it a little bit and just to make sure you can kind of play around with it. That's one of the great things about Procreate is, nothing's really permanent. You're working with layers so that you can move the layers however you need to. If you need to make the layer a bit more deformed like I did here, then use the deform button down there at the bottom until you get the layer where you think it is. Now I took off that layer again where the layer is still there, but I just have it where I can't see it because I unpressed the N key because I want to be able to go and I want to sort of see what's going to happen with the next layer. So you can see how I do the box and it straightens itself out, and then I can take it and I can move it and put it exactly where I need it to be. So again, once I have it where I need it, exactly where I need it to be, then I need to take and I need to fill it in with another color. So now I have this box here, and you see I've got 3 of them that are about the same size. So what I can do here then is I go and I can duplicate it. So now I've duplicated it, and then I can just move it into place. I can do that again, another thing. So this is a great thing too, because you can duplicate the layers. And then so if you have the things that are the same size, so you have to be kind of a little careful because sometimes they flip around if you don't quite get them right. So you might want to erase it off. And then if that's the case, and I bring it in to make the picture to bigger, use your 2 fingers to make it larger on the screen itself. And then you duplicate it, and then you move it up. So you can kind of play around with this, just a little bit. So there I've got this lamp that sort of has these 3 little blocks that we're kind of working with. And I know that the blocks are pretty much all the same. So I'm going to turn off the blocks now, because the next thing I'm going to do is I want to do this line that's sort of in between, because that's a different line that's going to need a different color with this design. So I'm going to go now, I'm going to pick a different pen and a different color, something that's a bit different so I can see it. And I'm going to pick a yellow color. And when you're working in small sizes like this, I will show you here in just a minute what can kind of be a little bit of a problem is here I'm doing like a rectangle. And when I hold it together to try to straighten it out, it turns into an ellipse. So this kind of becomes a little bit of a problem sometimes with very close together rectangles. The system doesn't really know if it's going to be an ellipse or a rectangle, so a lot of times they do it as just an ellipse. So I have to try to do it again. So it's going to ask me again to open up the other layers which are there, because I'm working on top of the layer. So I'm going to go on top of it now. I'm going to try to do it again, see how close I can get. And sometimes by going in larger there, you sort of straighten it off, and that should probably work okay for what we need to do. Then I can go in now and I can try to see whether or not I can fill this. But I think it's not quite as right as it should be. So let's try it again. Again, this is a great thing. Make a mistake, no problem. Just delete the layer and just keep on going till you get it where you think it's about right, where you think you have it where you want it to be. So there, now it's straightened out a bit where it's kind of become more rectangle. That's a little bit better. I can kind of move it and sort of adjust it, kind of get it into that really, really tiny space. These tiny spaces are a little bit more difficult than, working in a bigger space with Procreate. I'm really not sure why that is, but that's just one of the things that there about the program. But at least, you can adjust everything you need to adjust, and you can be able to work with it to see. So I love that this gives me the ability to play around and decide exactly how I want it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the blocks. I'm going to duplicate it, but as these are tiny, I'm going to do it a little bit slower than the other ones, and then I'm going to make it smaller then bigger and then put it up bit by bit, because if you do it too small, then it tends to lose its shape like it's doing here right now. And that becomes a little bit of a problem sometimes in moving the smaller shapes in Procreate. And I really kind of want them all to be as uniform as possible on this, because they're all supposed to be uniform. So there, you can move it into the next position there. Okay, and then I can duplicate it again. And each time you duplicate it, it of course will basically add a layer on top of a layer. So as I've emphasized a lot, one of the most, see if you actually did a line on that, you drew a line on it, you can just tap 2 fingers and you can erase it. So there it is now. So we're going to go in and we're going to duplicate it again. And then, you see what happens is that sometimes it's just when you do that, it's easier to kind of make it and then sort of make it in where it's bigger, and we can actually grab it, because what you're doing when you're doing that is you're kind of grabbing it and you don't want to move it. You want to keep the shape the same. So I kind of move the picture in and out, kind of grabbing it to keep the shape the same. I find that this is the easiest way to be able to move. See, even there it kind of moves a little bit, so you really have to just sort of kind of work with it. Kind of getting it, so if you move it if you move the picture, make it bigger now, it stays. That's the one problem with being able to move things a bit in Procreate. It can take a little bit of practice to be able to sort of understand that and understand kind of what you're doing with that. So now we need to add another layer, because we have the top part of the lamp, which also needs to be done. So we're going to sort of trace this very top part there, trying to follow it as best as we can, and then starting to learn to adjust it a little bit as it needs to be adjusted, and so that we can be able to have it look like the lamp has a top on it. You don't want the lamp to look like it's kind of just floating there in the air. You don't want to have that at all. So, again, a great thing about it is you can adjust it. When you have that little arrow up there you see on the left-hand side, that's allowing me to adjust it. Again, you need to be able to fill the color. Okay. So now the lamp part of it should be pretty much completed now. I've taken off that layer now, because the next thing I want to do is I want to be able to kind of do the neck of the lamp. So again, I'm just going to do a basic rectangle, let it, shake itself in place. Move it if I need to adjust it at all, so that the shape can be adjusted. And again, I will do the same thing in that I will fill in the color. So basically, if you're going to talk about what is the process is that you add a layer, you draw the shape, you fill in the color, and then at the end you'll do the clipping mask on it. So now we're going to do the shade, and we're going to kind of trace around it. We want the shade to be about the same size. We don't need to change the shade too much. And now we can kind of adjust the shade as we need to be able to adjust the shade. Again, we can get it as good as we think that it needs to be, and to move it about, and to get the shade into the right shape. Again, a great thing about Procreate allows us to do this. Now we're going to pick a color. And you see that now that color didn't go into it. And I will show you exactly the reason why, is because if the shape is not completely secure, or if it's not a complete shape, if there's a hole anywhere, this technique will not work. So you have to fill in there. There's that little tiny bit up there before that it will allow me to even fill in the color. This, of course, is a big thing. Now it's working there. But again, you have to be able to fill in that shape, or the clipping mask will not work properly for what we're trying to do. Now we need to add another layer on top of that. And then we're going to do the finial that we want to be able to do. So we need to kind of decide again, what kind of color we're going to pick. We can, erase the layer as we need to, or, to make it easier, we can just take the neck. And I can just take that neck and just I can move it up like I did the other ones. I can delete it. I can try to duplicate it again, bring it in. And right there, you can do it. And I can just sort of slide it up as I need to slide it up. So I can't really see it there now. This is the problem because it's against it, but I can try to move it up and to see what can be done. Sometimes that's an easier way to do it, or sometimes there's another way. You can play around with it a little bit to decide. We take off the shade there. Now we can kind of see it, and we can kind of move it about. And then we can decide where we want to position it or how we want to position it, and we can adjust it as we want to adjust it. Now I can decide if I like that finial, if I don't like the finial, if I want something different. I can try to move it around, move it about, and adjust the size. Again, one of the great things about Procreate is you can kind of look over and sort of view the whole lamp and the design. You kind of decide. And in this case, I'm not really big on that finial. I just think another finial would be a little bit more interesting. Maybe something, bigger at the top there, because I just happen to think that a finial is kind of a nice added touch on a lamp. So I can go here and set up another, sort of square, and, again, sort of adjust it. If it's not right, you just do two taps, onto the screen, and it will erase it and take you back. But also, make sure that you are on the same layer. Kind of let it click in. Adjust it. Sometimes working with these smaller things can be kind of a little bit harder sometimes, but you can decide how much you want to adjust it and exactly what you want to do. I can, raise it up, make it smaller, and do a host of other things. And then when I have the exact shape that I sort of want and I've played around with it, then I can fill it in with the color. Then I can move it down below the shade, and there it is. It's on top of it. So if I go back and take back all the layers that I've turned off, there, the ones where I unchecked the N, and if I check the N again, then I can see all of my layers, one by one. And then I can be able to see exactly, how my lamp is going to pretty much kind of look with this. So that's where now we're all ready, and we're all ready to start to do the clipping mask, which basic clipping mask is that you add a layer On top of the layer that you want to do the clipping mask, you insert a photo. And then when you insert the photo comes on. You can pick out whatever color you want. You make sure you put it over where you're going to do the clipping mask, and then you press clipping mask, and it will clip right into the shape of that. So if you happen to put in 2 layers like I did here, you can just take one off and erase it. You just again put it over. You really need to do this layer by layer and put over. I like to keep my layers separate just because I feel like it's cleaner at the end. Sometimes when I'm working with gold colors, I might have a couple different shades of gold that I work with that's the same one, so people can actually kind of see more of the layers on it. So here I am. I keep adding the layers on with the gold, and then I place clipping mask. Again, you add the plus sign to add a layer, insert a photo, put the layer on it, clipping mask. It can kind of be a little bit of work, some work actually. You can decide here if you want to have the same one there. Make sure that you cover that layer that you're doing the clipping mask on, and then you press clipping mask. The other thing that I have left here maybe is some of the base itself now. We're going to use this animal print that I have here, and I'm going to decide about where I just sort of judge in, so where you think it should kind of be. You can move it about the top layer, and it's not set until you actually do the clipping mask on it. So you can kind of judge for yourself, move it about, and there you go, clipping mask. If you don't like it, you can always do it again. Insert photo, because I don't really like that design. I think this design might look a little bit better. If it gets flipped around or there's a problem, you can always, unflip it by using that little green dot there at the top with your pencil to move it, and then kind of see if you like that, and you can clip it in. And you keep doing this layer by layer until you're done with adding one layer on top of another layer. That's why sometimes some of the designs, for Procreate that we do can have, like a lot of layers to them. Just because every single part and every single piece, like this lamp here, is going to need to have a layer. So it can be a little bit of, kind of tedious work, but it's what works the best for this type of technique. Then here we're going to add another layer. You can see we're already up to 22 layers on this lamp. We're going to adjust it, try to make it where the line is going down the middle part of it. And I'm going to do clipping mask. So that looks actually, pretty good. Looks pretty, interesting on it. Now I've got to go back to, this is the top part here. Going to add another layer, and there we go. It's a clipping mask on it. So, the lamp, you can see it's starting, pretty much to come together now. If you need to be able to adjust anything, we can go back and we can kind of work and sort of adjust it too, if I need to adjust any of the layers. So you can kind of go in there and we can kind of adjust whatever, needs to be adjusted. For each of these layers to kind of make them the way they are. This, this lamp's a little bit more complicated than some of the other lamps because it has a lot more layers to it. So that's one of the things. The more layers you work with, the more complicated or complex they can become sometimes. So now the next thing, we can just keep adjusting these as we need to adjust them. We can go in and adjust these little tiny layers in between here if we feel like we need to adjust those just a little bit. Sometimes when you bring both your fingers to go in or to go out, we can go in and we can kind of adjust the bottom layer there, and then the top layer will follow. So feel free, when you're working with this, to play with the layers anytime you need to. I'm going to move this layer now down so that it's not on top of it, because I want it to be like just a very small, just a very like thin line of gold, like in between those two. So here I've done is I've taken these two and I made them into a group. So I'm moving them down as a group. So you can actually group your things together, which means we'll keep the layer together. So you can see now it's starting to shape up quite a bit. We still have a few things that we need to be able to do on this. But you look it over and it's looking like a pretty decent lamp. I think I'm quite pleased with it. I see a little bit of a line down there. I'm going to have to sort of adjust that line there because we don't want to be able to see that red there. We're going to have to find out which layer that is. You can kind of find out by turning them off and on a little bit. And then you can kind of take them and sort of like, also adjust them as you need to. So, like nothing is really permanent. Again, so that was that layer, so you can check and see. There's that layer right there. And if I can take it and see if I can kind of get a little bit adjusted, or what you need to do to be able to fix that a little bit. So I just put a little bit of color in there, and look, it's gone away. So there's lots of little tricks that you can use for Procreate, which is really great. So we have a few things left to do. Need to get the shade, the neck here. The same thing. Use do the clipping mask for the neck, and then we will do the clipping mask for the shade. So the last one will be the shade, and then we can pick out a color of some shades that we have here. Different shade colors here, and make sure we put it up on top there of the entire area, and do clipping mask. See, there it is. It just took a little bit more time than some of the others, but you can see it's quite it's an interesting looking lamp. You can at least have an idea of how the lamp's going to look. And now I can export the picture, and here's the picture that's been completed. So we really love Procreate because we find it's an easy way to be able to design. We believe that anybody can become a designer with just an iPad Pro and a pencil. This has been a video from Anita at Mindoro. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. We'd really love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of other great videos about Procreate Made Easy. Also, feel free to go to onto our website at mindoro.com. We have a lookbook that you can download free that has lots of great design and other ideas, a lot of the designs we have done with Procreate. And we do a lookbook about once every 6 months with lots of trends and color chips and other things that's completely free for you to be able to download. If you have any home decor or home product needs in Asia, we'd love to hear from you. So please feel free to contact us, and we'd love to see what we can do to be able to help you out. Again, thank you so much for listening, and we hope you all have a great day. Thank you.